Did you miss me? I sure missed you. Coming up on today's episode of the Kev BKA Beloved Show, South Carolina wins it all. We talk about Caitlin Clark's GOAT case, the anatomy of Angel Reese, pause, and I answer your NFL questions. But first, the day was March 31st, 2023. The Final Four is taking place between South Carolina and the Iowa Hawkeyes. Iowa star Caitlin Clark waves off Raven Johnson at the three-point line as Iowa proceeds to win 77-73. The clip goes viral. South Carolina loses all 5 starters, including number 1 overall pick Aaliyah Boston. Raven goes to the lab, shooting threes all summer long, 300 a day if I remember correctly. And Coach Dawn Staley set out on a quest to find all the three-point shooting the nation had to offer. Tahina Pow, you in Oregon? Man, ain't nothing popping in Oregon, man. Come on down here. Come on a chip. Tessa Johnson, Minnesota. It's cold up there. Come enjoy the South Carolina weather. It's lit. Malaysia Fuwali, you 20 minutes from campus. Come on down, man. Let's do that. Come back next year. The squad is set and the journey has started. Raven Johnson comes back with a career-high three-point percentage. With this new roster, they go 38-0, beating the following teams: North Carolina, Maryland, Duke, Utah, UConn, Indiana, Oregon State, North Carolina State, North Carolina twice, LSU twice, Tennessee twice, and in the national championship, the Iowa Hawkeyes. In the era of NIL in the transfer portal, where legendary coaches are crying everywhere from press conferences and social media to even on Capitol Hill about how this new breed of player is just, they're so uncontrollable. How can I do my job? The game, the spirit is gone. Dawn Staley and the South Carolina Gamecocks went undefeated and won a national championship playing team basketball. A 9-woman rotation where no one gets more than 28 minutes a game, led by its defense, like the 2000 Spurs. Clearly, Dawn Staley has figured something out that the rest of y'all have not. She hears y'all complaining about these new age of players and has absolutely no idea what you're talking about. Dominique Yates, a sports reporter from WLKY, asked if this is the greatest coaching job we've ever seen. I like to give things like that a little more time. That's very spur of the moment. The game just ended. I need an extreme take. And I'm about to completely contradict myself because here's my extreme take. Have we ever seen a coach who was a Hall of Fame player that went on to have just as good or even better of a Hall of Fame coaching career? The first name that came to mind was Becky Hammon, but yeah, she's a Hall of Fame player for the WNBA, 6-time All-Star, back-to-back WNBA champion with the Aces. But I want to let her career simmer for a little bit. She just got the head coaching job. Yeah, she was an assistant with the Spurs for a while, but let's let that career simmer for a little while. Then I had to go historically. Bill Russell, he was a player coach, but he has to be in the conversation. His last 2 rings with the Celtics, he was a player coach. And then he went on to have a very forgettable supersonic career. I don't have to talk about his career as a player. It's pretty well known. 11 rings, best player of the 60s, all-time legend. The Finals MVP trophy is named after him. Like, y'all know who Bill Russell is. K.C. Jones, another member of those 60 Celtics, 8-time champion and was the heir apparent to Bob Cousy. He went on to have a coaching career for the Boston Celtics. He was the coach of that Larry Bird Celtics run. Got 2 rings himself, but as a player, 3rd best player, 4th best player on those championship teams. Then we got Lenny Wilkens. This is, I think, the best one-to-one comparison. Lenny Wilkens, Hall of Famer, 9-time All-Star, NBA 75th anniversary team, only 1 championship, but retired with the most all-time wins for a head coach, is still 3rd all-time now behind Greg Popovich and Don Nelson. First coach with 1,000 regular season NBA victories, very expansive coaching career. So that's contender number 1. But let's get into Dawn Staley. In college, 2-time NCAA All-Tournament, 3-time All-Region, 2-time Naismith Award winner, 2-time ACC Player of the Year, 4-time All-ACC, and the 1989 ACC Rookie of the Year. As a WNBA player, Hall of Famer, 4-time All-Star. And now as a coach, this is when it just gets silly. 2-time Coach of the Year, 7-time SEC Coach of the Year, 4-time USBWA Coach of the Year. There's so many different organizations that vote on college basketball awards. It's super annoying. 2-time AP Coach of the Year, 4-time Naismith Coach of the Year, 6 Final Fours, 8 SEC championships, 4 Athletic 10 championships, and now 3 national championships. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the headline. The Dawn Dynasty is the headline. Dawn Staley cementing her place as one of the greatest college coaches we have ever seen, and it is just getting started. I gotta give the players some love, though. I brought up Raven Johnson a couple times for good reason. Now, the shot wasn't falling on Sunday. That's fine. She more than made up for it on the defensive end. When guarding Caitlin Clark, who waved her off last year, you can clearly see she took it personal. Held her to 3 of 11, 7 points, and 4 first turnovers. Hey, bruh, you can miss all the shots you want. Matter of fact, don't even look at the basket. If you play defense like that, offense is no longer a concern of yours. Next up, top 5 pick Kamilla Cardoso, who was, for the entire tournament, looked unstoppable. Nobody had an answer for Kamilla Cardoso on either end of the floor. We need to get better with advanced analytics on the college basketball level. Officially, they only had her at just under 2 blocks a game, but my eyes told me there's at least 4 to 5 what I'll call hell no's. I think I took that from David Dennis from ESPN, where the mere thought of her being in the paint completely changed whatever the game plan was of the offense, and they didn't even look at the paint no more. It's like, all right, we got mid-range 3, layups are out of the question. She's down there. We can't do that no more. Ashley Swatkins, off the bench. How's 9 boards a game, 1.5 steals, 2.3 blocks a game? How's that sound? Including a 20 rebound game in the Final Four. Chloe Kitts, Bree Hall. Got to give love to the practice squad players as well, the highlighters. For y'all not familiar with the highlighters, they're the group of men that Dawn Staley has them practice against every single day. They are the scout team. So essentially, they're playing the role of insert team here that they're playing for that week. So 3 hours a day, 5 times a week, that is the team going against South Carolina every day. Y'all never stood a chance. And they got Jesus coming off the bench as the 6th man. How y'all supposed to beat him when Jesus is the 6th man? Some of y'all never saw the movie The 6th Man, so you won't get that reference. Marlon Williams, Kadeem Harrison. I'm sure it's on some streaming platform that I should have Googled before I started recording this, but go find it. It's somewhere. And the best part is they're only losing, I believe, 3 seniors? With the transfer portal losses and recruiting classes, which I refuse to follow. Silly me, tracking the movement of high school girls is not in my repertoire. But it somehow feels like only the beginning, which is wild to say when this women's dynasty started with the now best player in the WNBA, Angel Wilson, last year's #1 pick, Aaliyah Boston, and now ring number 3 with another projected top 5 pick, Kamilla Cardoso. We are watching the beginning-ish of an all-time run so special that it is going to challenge the legacy of a Pat Summitt and eventually Gino Auriemma. Gino's records are somewhere else. We got a while to go before we get to Gino, but still. And that ESPN and every other major sports network is how you do a segment that actually focuses on the team that won the game. Was that so hard? Quick break, and then we can talk about Caitlin Clark, because I know that's what y'all are here for. All right, so the Caitlin Clark discourse has gone completely off the rails, like every sports discourse seems to get, including an article from Complex Sports by Zion Alajuwide, sorry if I butchered that, and Cameron Hayward. The title is, why do y'all hate Caitlin Clark so much? Is it a race thing? Do people believe she's overrated? Do people think she's too cocky? The Complex team sat down to answer questions as to why people hate Caitlin Clark. I read this entire article because when I was first planning this segment, it was in a similar vein, but let me tell you the main difference. No one hates Caitlin Clark. Nobody does. You can't. How can you? She's an exciting player. She don't do shit but play basketball really well. The discourse around her is not her fault. She doesn't pour into it. She doesn't pour gasoline on the flame. In fact, when the microphone's in front of her, she does the best she can to quill it, but we'll get there in a second. So the correct title and what my segment is going to focus on is, why is the discourse around Caitlin Clark so shitty? The tweet that came out from CNN, which they deleted, or else if you're watching the video, it'll be plastered right now, right after they lost the national championship, was of her walking off the court losing. Rebecca Lobo and Ryan Rucco, who were announcing the game for ESPN, were very clearly rooting for Iowa the entire game. Clearly, they didn't even try to hide it. So again, I say, guys, we don't hate the 22-year-old who plays basketball well. I promise you, we don't. No one does. She hoops. She talks shit every once in a while, which I personally love. I know there's people who hate seeing confident women, but those people are fucking losers. They're not worth addressing anyways. So I'm going to do a little quick deep dive analyze on a lot of the points they brought up, but I'm going to see if I can do it with a little bit more cool. Cool. Let's Let's hit the elephant in the room first thing foremost. When people ask why Caitlin Clark is on the rise, the first thing they bring up as to why it becomes so controversial is because she's white. There's a long history of the great white hope in particularly boxing and basketball, but the great white hope in athletics in general is a main theme that we constantly encounter with sports narratives, right? You add in that there are few forces stronger than white woman victimhood in all of America, because I don't think it's a coincidence that a lot of her rise to fame was after Angel Reese hitting her with the same taunt that she hit in the Final Four the week before that happened last year's national championship. Now, to Caitlin Clark's credit, and I will always give her credit for this, every outlet gave her every chance to play the victim, and she turned it down every single time. She stood on business every time, which again backs my point. No one hates Caitlin Clark. She's done nothing wrong. She's done nothing wrong. And before we get to the why everything has to be made about race, man, why do y'all make everything about race? Well, one, I live in Maryland, and a boat hit a bridge in Baltimore, and the Republican crowd blamed it on our quote-unquote DEI mayor, because apparently you can get hired to be the mayor as a diversity hire, because elections don't exist anymore. Fucking idiots. So I'm not hearing your everything's about race arguments anymore. Fuck out of here. Next, we got play style. The way Caitlin Clark plays basketball is naturally exciting. One of the most exciting forces ever in any NCAA tournament is when the random white guy who's going to end up selling insurance randomly gets hot from three, like the dude from Oakland College that's not in Oakland, California, whose name is escaping me right now. Whatever his name is. When the random white dude gets hot from three in the NCAA tournament, we love it. We're locked in every single time. Only difference is this isn't a random white dude. It's the white superstar who's going to end up being the first pick in the draft. This doesn't happen except for one other case. Steph Curry. I know he ain't white, but follow me here. When Steph Curry was at Davidson, it was must-see TV. For y'all that weren't alive for this or weren't basketball fans for this, oh, buddy, you missed out. Oh, my God. It was great watch. And Nick Wright made this point, and I'm going to steal it and add on to it. Hear me out on this, right? Caitlin Clark is the Kobe to Steph Curry's Michael Jordan. What I mean by that is every single player who grew up watching Michael Jordan attempted to emulate his play style. Kobe Bryant is the only one who did it successfully. Every single player who grew up watching Steph Curry tried to emulate his play style. Caitlin Clark is the only one to do it successfully. That is what I mean when I say the Steph and Caitlin similarities. You could even see the discourse of it is very similar. You got the professional players and former players saying, yo, this ain't gonna work when you get to the WNBA. The game's different. Blah, blah, blah. And we'll get to the WNBA point a little later in this segment. But here's the difference. And this is the main separator as to why those two things are received so differently. When Steph was coming up, nobody was saying that Steph Curry was already better than Michael Jordan before he went to the NBA. That's the difference. That's the difference right there. There are people saying Caitlin Clark is the GOAT right now before she even played in the WNBA. And that's just silly. It's just silly. Next step is the media hype and the media attention. I'm going to couple this with the type of coverage and the timing that Caitlin Clark is playing in. Two parts of this. One, I remember Rebecca Lobo in the Women of Troy documentary on HBO that centers around that Cheryl Miller, Cynthia Cooper, McGee twin USC team that went back-to-back championships. Iconic women's basketball team, covers the history of women's basketball as well. For new fans of the women's game, go watch that. That'll pretty much catch you up to speed, right? But Rebecca Lobo made this point. I thought it was prominent. She said, if I was born 10 years earlier, the facilities I was able to make use of at UConn would not have been there because Title IX wasn't in place yet. So I am a Title IX baby. Let's apply that to Caitlin Clark. If she was born 10 years earlier, the media coverage wouldn't have been the way it was, regardless of how good she is. But let me tell you the common denominator on every single one of those issues I just listed, right? Here's the one common denominator. None of that matters if Caitlin Clark was not really fucking good at basketball. None of that matters. There ain't enough media hype in the world. Ain't enough white woman victimhood in the world. Ain't enough you play so cool in the world. You can't be pretty enough. You can't be enough. None of that matters if she is averaging 2 points a game. She's the all-time leading scorer in points in the NCAA history, male or female. This media hype, the white privilege, is not putting the ball in the basket for her. Side note, I can't wait to get a bunch of comments from the first half of this video for people that did not make it this far. If you made it this far, just go ahead and put a laughing emoji next to those. She's second all-time in assists. She owns so many records for tournament play, etc., etc. Caitlin Clark is incredible, which at the base of all of this is what makes this shit go, because she's good. Which leads me into the GOAT conversation for her. And are we ready for some nuance, ladies and gentlemen? I know we don't do nuance on our sports talk anymore, but I have to. I can't help it. She is already a legend. I'll take it one step further. Caitlin Clark is already a Hall of Famer. She's just not the GOAT yet. And that is okay. If God forbid she doesn't take a single dribble in the WNBA, she is already going to the Hall of Fame, because it is called the Basketball Hall of Fame. It's not called the NBA or WNBA Hall of Fame. College players are in the Hall of Fame. How do I know that? See Cheryl Miller, who is at the tippity top of the GOAT list, if we're going to do that. And for y'all not familiar with Cheryl Miller, the only reason why she didn't play in the WNBA was, one, it didn't exist yet, and two, she had a catastrophic knee injury the summer after her senior year anyways. Now, in a separate conversation, I think all GOAT conversations are dumb, to be completely honest. Everyone has their own personal criteria. We don't have a single set of rules to what makes somebody a GOAT and what makes somebody not, which is weird in a sport where we have numbers for literally fucking everything. But GOAT conversations, we're all just spitballing here. But sure, for the sake of the exercise, let's do it. Imagine showing up to the GOAT party completely ringless and looking four-time champion Breanna Stewart in the face. How does that even make sense to you? Looking at Maya Moore in the face. Caitlin Clark's hero, by the way. When her worst season at UConn was a loss in the Final Four. There are no GOAT conversations, regardless of sport, that feature players that don't have rings. Example, I love Allen Iverson. He is the most impactful and most influential basketball player to ever live, debate your mama. However, in GOAT conversations, I gotta leave him out of it because he don't got a ring. Does that sound familiar to y'all? And that is okay. That does not make Allen Iverson a lesser player. We all love AI. And we haven't even got to the WNBA part of this conversation yet, and I also find that interesting. First, let's go to the viral Diana Taurasi quote that got everybody's panties in a bunch.
College guys come out. They're waiting for him. I mean, Camilla's coming. Caitlin's coming. There's more than just that are coming. What will the league have in store for them when they get there?
Look, SVP, reality is coming.
Okay.
There's levels to this thing, and that's just life. We all went through it.
Of course.
And you see it on the NBA side, and you're going to see it on this side, where, you look superhuman playing against 18-year-olds, but you're going to come with some grown women that have been playing professional basketball for a long time. Not saying that it's not going to translate, because when you're great at what you do, you're just going to get better. But there is going to be a transition period where you're going to have to give yourself some grace as a rookie. And, it might take a little bit longer for some people.
Now, before I break this clip down, notice how Sue Bird is sitting right next to her in this very clip, who has been nothing but complimentary of Caitlin Clark, including a whole segment on her ESPN show, Sue's Places, where she interviews Caitlin Clark, has a shoot around with her. I think in that same game, when asked to pick between who she'd build her team around, Paige Beckers or Caitlin Clark, UConn alumni Sue Bird picked Caitlin Clark. Nobody brings that up because we just love to focus on negativity, but sure. Now back to the clip. First, you see how she wasn't just talking about Caitlin? She was talking about all the rookies. Second, she's absolutely fucking correct. Going from college to the pros is really fucking hard, regardless of sport. It's hard for everybody. And not only is it not hating for Diana Taurasi to do this, she is more than qualified to be the person to say this. She went from being a three-time champion, three-time All-American at UConn, averaging 16.2 points as a senior at UConn, to going to the WNBA and averaging 17 points a game, first-team All-WNBA and one Rookie of the Year. So if anyone can talk about how the transition between the WNBA and college is, it's her. And what else bothers me from the discourse around Caitlin Clark and the separator between her herself is she don't even agree with y'all. Roll the clip.
Caitlin, Caroline Fitzgerald from Goals. You're an inspiration to so many young girls, but you're also an inspiration to so many women who played sports and basketball when they were growing up. So what message would you like to share with those women who helped blaze this trail to have women's basketball shine like it is today?
I would say the biggest thing is just thank you. And, that's what I always talk about is like, women's basketball isn't just suddenly good. Like, it's been good.
So to the other side of this, day one WNBA fans and women's basketball fans, I do hope that we can make the distinction between how Caitlin Clark feels about her predecessors and women's basketball players and the way these new wave of fans feels, because they could not be more dissimilar. Speaking of which, due to Caitlin Clark elevating the game, which is undeniable fact, by the way. Go look at all the TV ratings and viewership that's been happening her last 3 games. It's ridiculous. Would the success of Caitlin Clark in the WNBA ultimately be good for the entire league? From where I'm sitting, unequivocally yes. Right? But these are still competitive athletes she's going against. They aren't going to welcome her in with open arms and an open lane to the hoop. That's not how this works. You are still a rookie. You want to be the face of the league? Go earn that shit. And why would we want it any other way? Look how we reacted when they called the most blatant moving screen in the world against Leah Edwards at the end of the UConn game, saying that they were cheating for her in that fashion. Imagine if they actually did on the WNBA. You'd all be pissed. So let's just, hypothetically speaking, say she goes to a WNBA full of vets that all hate her, which we know isn't true, but for the sake of the exercise, let's say that's true. Good. For a player like Caitlin, that's fantastic. Can you imagine the first time she hits the Steph Curry-esque fuck you 3 in Diana Taurasi's eye? How crazy that's going to go on the timeline? This is what we should want. This is sports. So in conclusion, because this segment has already gone longer than I wanted to, guys, we can have nuance in these conversations. I promise we can. Is Caitlin Clark a generational player, incredible talent, and a legend in her own right? Yes. Has she already elevated women's basketball to a point that cements her as a Hall of Famer already? Yes. Is she already the GOAT of women's hoops? No. This isn't hard. This is not hard. I promise it isn't. Quick break, and then we're going to talk about some more. I want to call this the curious case of Angel Reese, and we're going to set it up with this clip after the LSU loss to Iowa in the Elite Eight.
I don't really get to stand up for myself. I mean, I have great teammates. I have a great support system. I got my hometown. I got my family that stands up for me. I don't really get to speak out on things just because I just try to ignore, and I just try to stand strong. Like, I've been through so much. I've seen so much. I've been attacked so many times. Death threats. I've been sexualized. I've been threatened. I've been so many things, and I've stood strong every single time. And I just try to stand strong for my teammates because I don't want them to see me down and, like, not be there for them. So I just want them to always just know, like, I'm still a human. Like, all this has happened since I won the national championship, and I said the other day I haven't had peace since then. And it sucks, but I still wouldn't change. I wouldn't change anything, and I would still sit here and say, like, I'm unapologetically me. I'm going to always leave that mark and be who I am and stand on that. And hopefully the little girls that look up to me, and hopefully I give them some type of inspiration that, no, hopefully it's not this hard and all the things that come at you, but keep being who you are. Keep waking up every day. Keep being motivated, staying who you are, staying 10 toes, don't back down, and just be confident.
In a weird way, for all intents and purposes, that clip kind of represents how I've always looked at Angel Reese, a 21-year-old girl who, from the moment she hit the national spotlight, was incredibly self-aware of everything going on around her, put on a brave face, but behind closed doors, this shit has to get to you. We just so happen to see it on stage. And also operates with a level of maturity that is rare for someone that age, as far as the way she deals with social issues, dealing with her own brand, things of that nature, right? And most importantly, really fucking good at basketball. None of this matters if she wasn't good at basketball. And I feel like we could acknowledge and be proud of that maturity at such a young age, but at the same time feel a deep level of sorrow of the circumstances that caused her to mature so fast. Again, nuance. Although she is more successful at 20 to 21 than most people will be in 8 of her lifetimes, she deals with a level of scrutiny and vitriol, as she said in that clip, that most of us couldn't imagine and we would crumble under. At some point, that has to get to you, 21-year-old girl or not. I didn't need to see her crying at the press conference to know that at some level this has to affect her. And I know I keep calling her a girl. I mean no disrespect by it. I have a little sister who's around her age, so anyone 21-ish and under, I don't consider an adult. Also, I'm a man of science. I used to have my biology bachelor's behind me, but that's a little too pretentious. But there is no biological evidence that turning 18 or turning 21 makes you an adult. There's none. The closest we have is at the age of 25 when the frontal lobe of your brain fully develops, and that's the part of your brain that controls decision making. So anyone below the age of 25, I don't expect you to make good decisions. I just don't. I can already hear the counterpoint, which is, oh, so 18's old enough to go fight overseas. You see how two things can be wrong? We shouldn't be sending 18-year-olds to be in the military either. That is also wrong. Again, nuance. Nuance is the word of the episode. Nuance. In the past year of 20 to 21-year-old Angel Reese's life, she had the 4-game suspension at LSU, which we still don't know why the hell that happened. The president of one of the largest sports media companies on the planet calling her a quote-unquote classless piece of shit. It's still fuck you, Dave Portnoy. Throw in the death threats, straight up rape comments that she gets on a daily basis, trolling accounts, having to answer for her head coach's bullshit. Pile on that on top of also having to be an all-American level basketball player. Yeah, that could be a lot. To quote Fly J. Johnson, the crown she wears, quite heavy. People were coming at her for the LSU scuffle with South Carolina, which she wasn't a part of. She was walking to the bench as it was happening. Matter of fact, walking is a little too extreme. She was hobbling to the bench because she hurt her ankle again. And I know, she has all the bravado in public and all the trash talk in public and blah, blah, blah. As if we haven't seen this a million times before. I'm gonna get dark here in 3, 2, 1. The genie from Aladdin killed himself. Robin Williams offed himself. I don't know what more do you need to know that the public facing image of what people are dealing with behind closed doors usually do not line up. In a prior video I made before the tournament titled Mansplaining Caitlin Clark and Women's Basketball, the thumbnail literally says, with growth comes stupidity. I bring that up not to be self-promotional, even though that video is fire. You should go watch it like all my other videos. Like, subscribe, blah, 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 blah. But I was outlining and kind of predicting that as the women's game continues to grow, we're going to get a lot more dumbass discourse like the way that the rest of sports discourse is. 1, I was absolutely correct. And 2, the part I left out and I've been kicking myself for ever since was not accounting for these fucking incel trolls that have overpopulated modern sports discourse, specifically on social media, that can hide behind these faceless accounts with these paid for blue checks and hurl the most sexist, racist, homophobic, you name it comments at star athletes. And now they get to aim it at a group of people they already don't rock with, which is women. Add in intersectionality with Angel being a black woman, a confident black woman at that, who is excellent at her craft and will let you know about it. This is like poison in an incel's mouth because she represents everything they can't be because they hate themselves. If not, why would they hide behind faceless accounts and do nothing but tear down other people? And to make matters worse, you got bootlicking coons like Emmanuel Acho going on Fox Sports and also calling her crazy things the moment she shows the slightest bit of vulnerability. I wish I could end this with some type of solution for Angel Reese or discourse in sports in general. But if I had the answer, we would have fixed this shit by now. So we're still working on that. But it does bring warmth to my cold, oversized heart to see the amount of love and outpouring that has come in Angel's direction post that press conference, particularly from black women, starting with their teammate Fly J. Johnson literally wiping the tears off her face as this press conference is happening. That's a real one right there. Shout out Flage. To the Jamel Hills throwing verbal haymakers to everyone who even came in her direction. And Jamel Hill is intimately familiar with the level of vitriol that Angel deals with. You should see Jamel Hill's mentions and comments on a day. It's literally a Klan rally every time she opens her mouth. To the incredible halftime, pregame, postgame show of Elle Duncan, Shanae Agumake, and Andrea Carter also lifting her up in support. This is why representation in media is so important. Because if we were dealing with a largely white male media who doesn't have to deal with shit like that and on some level can identify more with the opposition than they do with her, this would not be happening. And there's so many more names that I would be spending the rest of this podcast trying to mention. So to all of you, God bless you. And quite honestly, thank you. Because that moment was beautiful to me and halfway restored my faith in humanity. Halfway. So I do hope there is some solace of peace that could be found in that outpouring of love. And somehow, some way, it can outweigh these fucking incel losers that exist to do nothing but disturb the peace of people that are better than them. Quick break, get to the next topic. All right, main thing I left off last week, I apologize to everyone who submitted a question for last week's podcast. My bad. I didn't know I was taking a break yet at that point, and then eventually I did. So here we are. I'm answering them now. Luckily, they're not too dated, but you know the rules. Every Monday on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook, you will see a pretty little graphic saying, ask me anything. Leave your questions in the comments and you will hear it on the podcast just like this. First question, you got Troy Franklin going to the Chiefs over 4 other receivers. Who were the 4? So I'll put my mock draft up right here for anyone who missed the episode. I'll link it in the little anecdote thing for people who didn't see it yet. But I had Troy Franklin going to the Chiefs at number 32. All the other receivers were taken off the board. And the 4 other receivers I was considering at that spot were Xavier Legette from South Carolina, Xavier Worthy from Texas, Ladd McConkey from Georgia, and Malachi Corley from Western Kentucky. I'll go one by one. Xavier Legette, I kind of look at as like a Gen Z Des Bryant or a rookie year DJ Metcalf type. Just a big body 50-50 ball type receiver who's also remarkably fast. Freak athlete, but that's not really the archetype of receiver that the Chiefs look for. Xavier Worthy is a speed demon guy. Obviously, he now owns the record for the fastest 40 ever, but believe it or not, if you watch him, he's not a deep threat. He's more so of a catch a short pass, make people miss, and then zoom down the field type of guy. That could be because of how Steve Sarkisian and Texas offense used him, or it could be that's just not his game. We don't know yet, so for now, we're going to say that's not the role he can fill. Third, we have Ladd McConkey, who is not your typical slot white guy receiver. Stop stereotyping that man, you racist bastards. He's more so of a great route runner, amazing stop-start ability. I think he ran like a 4.4, just under that at the combine. So plenty of speed, great separator, but his deep ball tracking skills hurt my eyes to watch. I'll be honest. Now, that could be because of Stetson Bennett last year and Carson Beck now. Not sure yet. But ability to track the deep ball was the downfall of some of the Chiefs receivers last year, so they're not going to bring someone in who has that same flaw. And lastly, Malachi Corley, kind of my same issue I had with Xavier Worthy, except instead of speed dump-off guy, he's a power dump-off guy. He doesn't really have a route tree yet. The offense at Western Kentucky was, we're going to dump you off the ball, go make people miss. And he did. He's incredible at it, but you're not going to be able to do that on the NFL level. All of them, I do have similar grades on the late first to mid second round tier. So if the Chiefs go with any of those options, if they're all on the board, I wouldn't be surprised. But I just thought Troy Franklin was the best option of those 5. He's a 3-level threat at receiver. He's not perfect prospect at all either. He's remarkably fast. He's about 6'3", 6'4". So that height, weight, speed combination there, I think he's the best fit for Kansas City. Thank you for the question. Question 2, why do you love Michael Penix so much? Because he's really good at football. Thanks for the question. I'm kidding. So, 1, I'm not alone here, by the way. According to this pretty little article from Bleacher Report by Scott Polick, there's NFL coaches who think Michael Penix Jr. is the number 2 quarterback in his draft. He's a stud and a born leader, which, again, hear me now, believe me later on. But I'll keep it simple and not go full-blown tape-by-tape detail as to why I'm so high on Michael Penix. I watch college football every week, especially Pac-12 games since this was the last season. I watched a lot of Washington game. The kid balls. Every big moment he balls. Every single one. Before the big drive in their first game against Oregon, he was freestyling on the bench about how they were going to come back and then did it. So the quote-unquote moxie, 100 out of 100. He makes every single read pre and post snap, and he's not running the air raid in Washington. They're running an actual offense out there. He led the nation in pass attempts, so the entire offense, for the most part, was, hey, Mike, go make it happen. Granted, they had NFL tier receivers all over the place. We'll get there in a second. His ball placement is excellent. He can make every single throw. You watch his film, and religiously, He makes NFL throws down to down all the time. I don't have to guess, can he make NFL throws and reads? I have video evidence that he's able to do it consistently and excellently all the time. So on the base level of experience, intelligence, and talent, I know he has it. And now to the receiver point, see Joe Burrow, see Tua Tagovailoa, see CJ Stroud, see Jalen Hurts. I don't care how good your receivers are if you're hitting them in the face with the football. I don't know how better to explain that. If they're not jumping out the gym trying to get these footballs, go watch Marvin Harrison Jr.'s tape with the quarterback he was dealing with at Ohio State. That's the difference. And also, you're an NFL GM. Go get him some damn receivers. There's only one team that managed to win without all-star receivers, and that was the Chiefs. And two things there. One, they have a Hall of Fame tight end in Travis Kelce. And two, they had Patrick Mahomes. God only made one of those. So unless you got him, go get your quarterback some receivers. Thanks for the question. Question 3, why do they think we, Arizona, are going to trade down plus good-ass mock draft? First, thank you. Secondly, it's a twofold. One, the J.J. McCarthy hype. They think they're going to overwhelm you with a trade offer to move up to that 4 spot, which, as much as I'm high on Marvin Harrison Jr., if you get like a multiple first-round pick, 2 to 3 years of first-round picks, no receiver is good enough to pass that up. I'm sorry, they're just not. And thing two, Marvin Harrison Jr. sitting out the draft process, I think that did more harm to his stock than he originally planned for. I think Malik Neighbors is really good. I think Rome Odunze is really good. There's a lot of really good receivers in this draft that I expect to be multiple-time Pro Bowlers, a lot of 1,000-yard receivers, blah, 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 blah. Marvin Harrison Jr. is something different. We throw the word generational around, really. In my opinion, there have been 3 generational receivers the past century. No, 4. I'm sorry. There's been 4. Jamar Chase, Julio Jones, Calvin Johnson Jr., and now Marvin Harrison Jr. That's the list. This is the caliber of receiver that he's on. But since he sat out the draft process, people are bored, so they don't want to keep saying, yeah, it doesn't matter, he's not doing anything, and we haven't heard from him in months. He's still going to go number 4, which is what's going to happen. They'd rather say, the Cardinals will trade out that pick. Someone will get J.J. McCarthy, which I've talked about J.J. ad nauseum. I just don't understand that one, and maybe it's not for me to understand. That's fine. That's why I'm not making these picks. Thanks for the question. I know you're a Pats fan. Rumor has it that Zeke could go back to Dallas. Not really a question, but I'll form that out. Why not? So first, the Patriots fan in me, Antonio Gibson is going to fill that receiving back role, which is kind of the role Zeke did last year. Granted, we're running a very different offense this year that apparently Zeke just didn't fit in. I hope that Ramondre Stevenson could get his shit together and look like Ramondre from rookie year instead of the Ramondre we got last year. But to the Cowboys side, the Cowboys had very bad red zone issues last year. I got the numbers in front of me right here. They were 14th in red zone touchdown percentage with 56.3% in the red zone last year. So as good as our offense was in the red zone, not so great. The year before, they were first in red zone percentage, 71.4%. What was the one big change from their offense? Ezekiel Elliott, who all 12 of his touchdowns were in the red zone. Yeah, they should sign Zeke back. I think that's a good idea. Thanks for the question. Thoughts on Rashee Rice? He didn't learn from Henry Ruggs III. Okay. Not exactly a one-to-one here. For y'all that missed the story, let me see if I can catch you up real quick. This is on the Associated Press. Kansas City Chiefs player Rashee Rice was the driver of one of 2 speeding sports cars who left after a chain reaction crash on the Dallas highway over the weekend, the receiver's attorney said Thursday. So it was a 6-car accident, and the story's progressing week to week. Apparently now he might face drug charges because they found less than an ounce of weed in the car. Texas drug laws are weird. So maybe he'll see, I doubt he'll go to jail. Famous people don't go to jail unless they murdered somebody, and no one got hurt. It's minor injuries. And I said this earlier in the podcast, and in case you missed it, dude's 23. Anyone below the age of 25, I don't expect you to make good decisions. And especially in the position he's in, he's prone to do some stupid shit. Imagine you're fresh off of winning a Super Bowl. You are in prime position to be the number 1 wide receiver for the best quarterback in football for the next 10 years of your career. You are driving a Lamborghini SUV in your hometown. Feeling yourself is an understatement. You are prone to do some unbelievably stupid shit, which undeniably this is. Thankfully, nobody got hurt. This could have been much worse. But right now, this is just dumb. He was racing his friend, street drag racing. Again, stupid, dangerous, but no one got hurt. Slap on the wrist, public apology, do some community service. Go talk to some high school kids about the danger of drag racing. Move on. Next question. Last question of the show. How likely will we see a Celtics and Dallas final? All right, so I'm going to do a full NBA playoff preview next week, but to answer this question, we'll start with Dallas first, so my Celtics fan bias doesn't take over the rest of the show. So Kyrie and Luka learning to play together is one of my favorite subplots of the season because nobody saw that coming. They've managed to figure this out pretty well. I think a lot of it has to do with Luka's like, bruh, thank God somebody can handle the ball and deal with things so I don't have to for 48 minutes. So I love seeing that. Also, I got to give Kyrie Irving some credit because I said on the opening kickoff podcast on my man Dave that I'm not going to talk about Kyrie or take him seriously until he is still on the team and headline free after Black History Month. It is now April, headline free all season long. Salute to Kyrie Irving, great season. And we all just forgot it's amazing to watch Kyrie Irving play basketball. It's just a fun thing to watch. And Luka is going to be the best player in a series, any series they play in, except for maybe 2 or 3, if I'm being harsh. And that's kind of what's going to stop them from getting to the finals because one of those 2 or 3 teams is the Denver Nuggets, who I just don't see anybody in the West beating. Any close Nuggets game, they are going to be able to out-execute you every single time because they have one of the best offensive players we've ever seen. And again, I always make this distinction. Scorer, shooter, offensive player do not all mean the same thing. I will break that down in a later video, but I hope for some of you that already makes sense. Jokic is a great offensive player because every time down the floor in crunch time, he's going to make sure that his offense gets the best shot possible. That doesn't mean they're going to shoot 100%, but they're always going to make the best shot. And they're always going to look crisp on offense. It's rare that the Nuggets look disjointed on offense. I mean, Dallas, on the other hand, similar to the Celtics, late in games are going to rely on iso ball, whether with Kyrie or Luka Doncic, who are really good at iso ball, unlike the Celtics. But if you're telling me it's iso ball versus this well-oiled machine on offense, I'm going to go with the well-oiled machine. Now for the Celtics. There's no reason why the Boston Celtics should not be going to the NBA Finals this year. Minimum going. They're what, up 15 games on the rest of the East? If we're gonna be honest, this is homerism aside. If you're this much better than the rest of your conference, no series should go past 5 games. There's no excuse for it if you are a serious championship team. But if you listened to me before, you've heard me say the Boston Celtics are an unserious outfit. They just are. So if you're telling me to rely on the seriousness of the Boston Celtics, it's hard for me to do. I love my Celtics. I do. I'm just tired of getting my heart broken. So I'm not putting... I don't know. They should make the finals. They should make the finals. But I don't know. I just don't know. All right. Thank you so much, everybody, for listening. I took last week off because, quite honestly, I was burnt the fuck out. I had a spring break from my classes. My workload at my 9 to 5 was a little bit light. But for y'all that don't know, getting a degree in sportscasting, I also have a 9 to 5. And I do this, where I make podcasts weekly and videos every single day for y'all. So I've been doing that for about 1.5 years, going on 2 years, and I was just mentally spent. Couldn't formulate proper thoughts last week. I needed that week off. I will not make a habit of that, but there are going to be different things that I want to do. Like, instead of doing more topical weekly stuff, I want to make more content that'll last longer. I already have an idea for what my next longer thing will be, which the first episode of that hopefully comes out on the 14th of April. Fingers crossed. That doesn't mean I will not continue to do this, because I do love talking about, quote unquote, the topics of the week. But for right now, I'm going to shift my focus just a little bit. So if the posting frequency slows down, don't panic. We're still good. Still love y'all. But, more content that'll last longer than me. You feel me? Cool. Thank you so much for listening, everybody. See y'all next week.